Justice Kumar registered himself for purpose of practice in the year 1976. And for a period of almost 24 years, he practiced in the High Court of Karnataka. And it was in the year 2000, he was selected as an additional judge. And in the very next year, in 2001, in the month of October, he was elevated as a permanent judge of the High Court of Karnataka. He is the one who has delivered wonderful decisions, maybe in the area of personal law, maybe in the area of election petitions, or maybe in corporate law. And he is known for his integrity, honesty, sincerity, and the most feared judge who was serving as the judge of the High Court of Karnataka. I don't need to speak to you anything except in giving one instance. He is the one who disqualified 11 judges in the BJP regime in the year 2013. So 11 of the MLAs in the BJP regime were disqualified by him. And later, the matter, when it went to the Supreme Court of India, the Supreme Court actually endorsed of what Honorable Justice N. Kumar has indicated as a judge of the High Court of Karnataka. He has served in different capacities. He served as a president. He has been the president of the Judicial Academy. And in the Judicial Academy, he has brought wonderful changes. And in the Karnataka State Judicial Academy, he is a model to every one of us today. It is because of this honorable judge. He is the one who brought in far-reaching reforms as well. And in the area of ICTR, there also he has brought in lots of changes. And we have with us, he has visited several times here. He has been visiting from the establishment of the institution of CMR Group of Institutions here on behalf of the Board of Directors, Board of Management, and the CMR Law School. I deem it a great privilege to welcome you, sir. I also welcome almost all the students who are present here. Just to hear it, you will learn a lot of things. Because not only knowing things, but learning things is equally important. And all the staff members of CMR Law School who are present here, and everyone who are part of this institution. So best wishes to the day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for introducing and welcoming our chief guest. CMR University School of Legal Studies Center for Alternate Dispute Resolution was established with the aim to disseminate knowledge in areas of alternate dispute resolution mechanisms. As part of the center, we are happy to release our online journal on dispute settlement and arbitration online. It is a first of its kind e-journal started by us. We request our honorable chief guest to release this journal.
Thank you, sir. We are much honored. CMR University School of Legal Studies provides real-life exposure into child rights and intends to provide integrated support and consultancy to different layers of institutional governance for protecting and ensuring child rights. On that note, I would like to invite our chief guest to inaugurate the CMR University School of Legal Studies Center for Child Rights. Thank you, sir. As part of the celebration of Samvidhan Divas, the students of CMR University School of Legal Studies Legal Services Clinic organized various competitions and events in the past week from 21st to 25th November. Now, we would like to display a video prepared by the students to get a glimpse of the activities of the past week.
Constitution Day, also known as National Law Day, is celebrated in India on 26 November every year to commemorate the adoption of Constitution of India. On 26 November 1949, the Constituent Assembly of India was adopted and the Constitution was brought into effect on 26 January 1950. On this occasion, we, the students of Legal Services Clinic of CMR University School of Legal Studies, celebrated Samvidhan Mahotsav and conducted a week-long program. In collaboration with Legal Aid Trust, Nirmuti, Performing Arts Club, and Locator, the Debate and Mud Club. On Monday, 25th November, there was a rally conducted to spread legal awareness and a poster making competition was also held. On Tuesday, 22nd November, folk dance competition was held, wherein the theme was Diversity of India. On Wednesday, 23rd November, street play was organized, wherein a mime act was presented to depict the transgender's rights. On Thursday, 24th November, quiz competition was held on constitutional laws. On Friday, 25th November, Constituent Assembly debate was conducted on system of reservation in India. The week-long Samvidhan Mahotsav is culminated today with the celebration of Samvidhan Divas. We, the students of Legal Services Clinic, have an objective to create awareness and support the public and uphold the constitutional values.
Now, I would like to cordially invite our chief guest for today, Honorable Mr. Justice N. Kumar, former Judge, High Court of Karnataka, to address the gathering.
Good morning to all of you. Respected Professor Subramania, respected Dean, the faculty members, dear students. Every year we are celebrating this Constitution Day. I am a part of these programs in colleges for the more than 2 decades. I see a very enthusiasm in the law students to study about the Constitution, to study about the leading judgments of the Supreme Court, and in only very few exceptions, in all your moot court competitions, a constitutional law is given. Sometimes the student participating in that would be a first-year student who has not even looked into the Constitution, but arguing constitutional cases better than the lawyers in the courts. That is the talent which is now available in the country, in the legal field. And that is the purpose for which this 5 years law course was introduced. We were not lucky. Having seen how this constitutional law has grown in the last 70 years, what I personally feel is it is time that we take stock of the situation. No doubt, Article 141 of the Constitution says the law declared by the Supreme Court is the law of the land. It binds everyone except them. Fine. as a principle, it is good. But we also should know error is human. If some errors are cut in the pronouncement of the Supreme Court, has the society to suffer for all time to come? Therefore, the great judge of America, Cardoza, has developed a wonderful principle of what is known as prospective overruling. He said, law of precedent is very much required to maintain continuity and uniformity in the administration of justice. But as I said, a law declared about 100 years back, if it is not suited to a society of today, you cannot go on suffering on the principle of precedence. Therefore, what this principle of constructive overruling, prospective overruling said was, don't find fault with that law. If it is not suitable today, change the law, keeping the requirement of the society today. Probably in India, we are at the stage. The reason why I am saying is, you're all youngsters, tomorrow's lawyers, tomorrow's judges. It is time that every one of us will have an open mind, look into the judgments, in what context, under what circumstances the judgments came in, and after 75 years, how many of them are relevant. The reason why I am saying is, the whole world accepts the Indian constitution as the best constitution, a very bulky constitution. As on today, in the last 70 years, 73 years, how many amendments we have effected to it? It is also a record. 104 amendments in 73 years, unheard of in the world constitutional history. Right? What was wrong with the constitution? There must be something seriously wrong. May not be with the provisions, but it did not comprehend all the situations which the country has to face. Because it is, constitution is a living document. It has to apply to the generations to come who are still unborn. In this context, my appeal to the students of law is, in the course of your study of constitutional law, I am sure you are going to look into every provision of the Constitution, the fundamental rights, directives of state policy, constitutional judgments delivered by the apex court and the various high courts. You also look into the judgments rendered by American courts, English courts, South African courts, Canadian courts. You collect all information. But I saw your video also. Is it not necessary for us, at least now, because all of us are born after independence and after the Indian Constitution came into force. We are born as free Indians. Today, this day is celebrated not to interpret the Constitution, to remember those great souls who gave us this Constitution. The deliberations of the Constituent Assembly is found in 5 big volumes. If you do not read those proceedings, the speeches, the contribution made by those great men, and then interpret these provisions of the Constitution, probably you will miss this distance. In my personal opinion, that's what happened in this country. This Constitution did not come from the sky in one day, nor was it prepared in one day. It is time that you youngsters, if you are called upon to draft a constitution for another country, what is that you are expected to do? Are you going to copy the Indian Constitution? So therefore, it is necessary for you to find out the growth of constitutional law. The growth of constitutional law is not from the day the Constitution came into force. The growth of constitutional law during freedom struggle, that culminated in the Indian Constitution. And the present Constitution, how it was prepared. What is the contribution of great men? What is the efforts put by them? Very much necessary for you to know, because I've been a part, as I said, of this college. Everybody looks into the Constitution. From the day it came into force, nobody was back. Only when you look into the efforts made prior to Constitution, then our respect to Constitution will increase. Then our understanding of the Constitution will increase. From that knowledge, you will be able to sit in what is called as judicial reviews, we say, constitutional courts. You can also judicially review these constitutional judgments delivered by the constitutional courts. And that should be what should be happening in days to come, to see that the aims and objectives, as mentioned in the preamble of the Constitution, should be the guiding factor, and which ultimately would be the only mode in which the constitutional principles reach the common man of this country. In fact, if you look into the Indian history, the first person who advocated a constitutional law for this country is Gopala Krishna Gokhale. He was a member of the Imperial Council. It is there who fought for a constitutional government in the country. Of course, he was no member, he was not accepted. The fight started from that we should have an Indian constitution which can take care of the interest of the whole people. Because I don't know, only the students of history probably will know some portion of the freedom struggle. After sufficient struggle in those days, just to please the Indian public, the Britain came up with what is known as Government of India Act of 1935. Your entire constitution is based on it. That did not contain fundamental rights. That's all. The rest of the structure of the Indian constitution today has its roots in that 1935 Government of India Act. At that time, the Britishers are not in a mood to give us freedom. Therefore, they protected their interest. But ultimately, when they decided that they have to hand over power to this country, then this idea of drafting a constitution for the country arose. At least on that day, you must know how this constitution has grown and what are the significant aspects and who are the great men who have contributed to this great constitution, which we are proud of today. As still students, you are going to be there for 5 years in the law course, having a very good library. I'm sure you will use this opportunity to know about the making of the Indian Constitution. Once the Britishers decided to quit this country, what if you see then Prime Minister of Britain, Winston Churchill, has said, or blood boils. I don't want to repeat it on an auspicious day like this. But unfortunately, we have proved him right. That is the most unfortunate part. We do not accept what he said. But in the last 70 years, we have proved him right that we deserve a very well complimentary. So, if you are interested, look into what he has said about Indians and why he was not prepared to give Indians the freedoms. Now, once it was decided that the freedom should be given to this country, the first thing they did was they sent what is known as a cabinet mission on 16th May 1946 to this country. They did not want to hold an election. There were elected bodies in each province. They said the members of the Constituent Assembly would be elected by these elected bodies. And that's how Constitutional Assembly was constituted with 207 learned men who were called the founding fathers. use the word founding fathers. Who are the founding fathers? Those persons who are elected to the Constituent Assembly from the elected members are called as the founding fathers of the Indian Constitution. On 9th December 1946, the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly was held in Delhi at exactly at 11 o'clock. That's the beginning of this Indian Constitution. As you know, in the present context, after the immediate of election, a senior member will make the speaker who will administer vote. So like that, Dr. Sachidananda Sinha took the chair as a temporary chairman of the Constituent Assembly. And Mr. Frank Anthony was appointed as deputy chairman. Then elections were held. On 11 December 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, member of the Constituent Assembly, was elected as the permanent chairman of the Constituent Assembly, who later became the president of India. The reason why I am pointing out to is, unfortunately, in our college curriculum, this is not that. Once the Constituent Assembly was constituted, with Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the president, the first thing they did was, they constituted as many as 19 committees. What are those 19 committees? Please see how meticulously this job was done. An ad hoc committee was constituted to decide what should be our national flag. When you say a country should be represented by a national flag, and the president, chairman of that company was Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Then an advisory committee on fundamental rights. They decided we should have fundamental rights. Somebody should tell us what it is. Mr. Vallabhbhai Patel was the chairman of this committee. Committee on the functions of the Constituent Assembly. What this committee should do, that also somebody should decide. J.V. Malkar, the first speaker, was the chairman of that committee. Then Committee on Minorities and Tribal and Excluded Areas. Vallabhbhai Patel was the chairman. Committee on the Rules of Procedure. Dr. Rajendra Prasad was the chairman. Special committee to examine the draft constitution. It was given to a great lawyer, Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer. Provincial Constitution Committee, that is for every state, that was by Vallabhbhai Patel. Drafting committee was headed by Dr. Ambedkar. Excluded and partially excluded areas of subcommittee. See how minutely they decided on that day. That was headed by A.V. Thakur. Finance and Staff Committee, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Fundamental Rights Subcommittee, Dr. J.B. Kiplani. House Committee, B. Pattabi Sitaramaya. Minority Subcommittee, Sri H.C. Mukherjee. Northeast Frontier, Tribal Areas, and Assam Excluded and Partially Excluded Areas Subcommittee, Gopinath Bardoli. Order of Business Committee, K.M. Munshi. States Committee, Sri Jawaharlal Nehru. Steering Committee, Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Union Constitution Committee, Jawaharlal Nehru. Union Powers Committee, Jawaharlal Nehru. 19 committees were constituted, with these great men heading it, and they did the groundwork. And all of them submitted the report to the Constituent Assembly. It is not the drafting committee who drafted the Constitution. These 19 committees, in their respective fields, applied their mind and submitted a report to the Constituent Assembly. After these reports were received by the Constituent Assembly, in August 1947, then somebody should look into what they have said. You must have a sound legal knowledge. You must also have a sound knowledge of constitutional law. Who was this work entrusted to? The Constituent Assembly appointed B.N. Rao as the main draftsman of the Indian Constitution. And he was ably assisted by Sri S.N. Mukherjee, his deputy. It is these two great men who looked into the report of these 19 committees and brought about a skeletal constitution. It did not end there, because as on that day, there were great democracies. The persons who drafted these reports probably had not seen those words. Then, though they drafted a skeleton, a drafting committee was constituted on 29th August 1947 by the Constituent Assembly, electing 7 members. These are the 7 members who are all experts in the field, who gave the Indian Constitution as it is today. They are Alladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, N. Gopal Swamy Iyengar, Dr. K. M. Munshi, Mr. Muhammad Sadawullah, Dr. Ambedkar, Sri B. L. Mittal, and Sri G. P. Kaitan. These 7 members in turn elected Dr. Ambedkar as the chairman of the drafting committee. Now, this drafting committee held its first meeting on 30th August 1947, 15 days after the independence. What this drafting committee did was, they entrusted the task of visiting various countries and having a consultation with the constitutional experts in those countries, and then to incorporate their views if it is suitable to us. And this work was entrusted to Mr. B. N. Rao, who visited USA, Canada, Ireland, and Britain, and consulted legal experts, constitutional experts, and duly those countries, and adopted the suggestions and submitted his report to the Constitution. It is said when B. R. Rao went to America, the Indians were not treated properly. B. N. Rao was no exception. He wanted to see the president. Initially, appointment was refused. Then, with great difficulty, he was able to get a time of 5 minutes in the morning, 9 o'clock. So, when he entered the chambers of the president, the time given was 5 minutes. This gentleman, before telling whatever constitution is, probably told the president what the American constitution, which the American president did not. When he came out, it was 5 o'clock in the evening. So he taught him the American constitution to the president. And then where is the question of getting anything from him? Anyhow, this is the part of history. So when B. N. Rao submitted the draft constitution to the drafting committee, it consisted of 243 articles and 13 schedules. That is the constitution which was worked thereafter by the drafting committee. The drafting committee sat for 141 days. It is not some enlightenment and somebody has written it. 141 days the drafting committee sat and in preparing this draft constitution. The total period took by the Constituent Assembly to give this constitution to us is 2 years, 11 months, 7 days. During this period, 11 sessions were held. 141 days was spent for the preparation of the draft constitution, and 114 days was spent for consideration of the draft. That is where the 5 volumes of Constituent Assembly, you will find the arguments went on for 141 days, and you see they may not be legal experts. They are people from different walks of life, great patriots who had full knowledge of the country and wanted to serve the country, and see their arguments, they see their oppositions, they see their views which they have expressed, keeping the country's interest in mind. Then after all this exercise, when the drafting committee prepared a draft. 243 articles became 315 articles, and they reduced the 13 schedules to 8 schedules. That is where the Constituent Assembly, the drafting committee members applied their mind, improved upon what V.N. Rao had given, adopted, accommodated the views of the learned members of the Constituent Assembly, that is the founding fathers, and came up with this draft of 315 articles and 8 schedules. You'll be surprised to see today, before a legislation is passed, normally the government circulates the drafts. The drafts are sent to advocate associations. I don't know whether it comes to the law. Nobody bothers to look into it. After the law has been passed by the parliament, you will have a battery of lawyers arguing against it. This is what today is. Please see what was the position then. After the drafting committee submitted the draft constitution to the Constituent Assembly, there were 7,365 amendments suggested to that constitution. 7,365. Out of whom 2,473 amendments were moved. And you'll be surprised to know these proceedings were watched by the public. Today, nobody bothers to go there. Only on the date of swearing in, the people go there, family members, nothing else. 53,000 visitors were admitted to the visitors gallery during the period of draft constitution for the constitution. See the interest the public had it. Well, please see the interest the public has now. What has happened to us in these 75 years? Therefore, we don't know the value of independence. We don't know the value of freedom. We want freedom to do whatever we want, that's all. And they are the persons who had suffered during that period. They wanted to see with their eyes what the representatives are doing. 53,000 people watched this 141 days proceedings, and they saw with their eyes what the representatives are doing in the Constituent Assembly. At the end of the consideration stage, the number of articles in the draft constitution became 386. And then after considering these amendments, it became 395 articles and 8 schedules. See the systematic growth of the constitution and how it moved from state to state. Now, in the final forum, which was adopted in the Constituent Assembly, we had 395 articles and 8 schedules. My young friends, it is not an easy job. Drafting a constitution is not an easy job. It is not a one-man effort. It is a collective effort of selfless persons, persons who had country in their mind and who went out of their way to do what best they can do, and that is how this great constitution, which today the whole world respects, came into being. Then you may be surprising, on 29th November 1949, when this constitution was adopted with the Constituent Assembly, why it took time till 26 January 1950 for its coming into operation? It also has a very good history. It is on 26th January 1930, the Lahore Congress Committee, the Congress leaders said, to them they were fighting for a limited freedom. They said, Sampurna Swaraj. We want complete freedom. We want the Britishers to get out of this country. We don't want to be ruled by anything. So that marks the final stage of freedom struggle. Therefore, they waited for that day to come in January 1950, and therefore they gave effect to this, because then the fight was, we had to be under the government. But Indian constitution is a republican government. The head of the state is an Indian. We are not prepared to accept the King of England as our sovereign. So, sovereign democratic republic came into being on 26th January 1950, as a result of the declaration made in 1930 that we want complete independence. Maybe it will be fascinating for you people to know this Indian Constitution is handwritten. One person with a beautiful handwriting wrote the Indian Constitution. Another great artist has given a background. What is that background? Background of Ramayana, background of Mahabharata, background of Bhagavata, and background of Indian culture. Thereafter it is printed and you have a printed copy. Even today, the original Indian Constitution is handwritten, and I have seen it. It is more beautiful than your printed letters. Such a beautiful artistic handwriting a great man had. Now, as I said, we are all born after independence. We are born after Constitution came into force. Now we have to find out how all this happened. Only we have to read it. That Constituent Assembly debates, which are now found in the first volumes, again, it's prepared by somebody else, is it not? Have they done a correct job? Have they said something which is not true? All that we can say today is Dr. Rajendra Prasad was the chairman of the Constituent Assembly. It is under his leadership this constitution came into existence, and Dr. Ambedkar was the chairman of the drafting committee. So according to me, the best two persons who could speak about with authority about how the constitution came into being, who are the persons who are responsible? When this constitution was made, what these forefathers had in their mind, we can gather it from what they have said. I don't think that could be challenged or it could be doubted. Absolutely, there is no reason. After this constitution is adopted, only one opposition was there, the rest voted for it. Then everybody congratulated the chairman, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the chairman of the drafting committee, Dr. Ambedkar, for the wonderful job they have done. Undoubtedly, those two great men have done a wonderful job. But the greatness lies in not accepting what they said. They said, you are great. Yes, I am great. No, greatness doesn't come in that fashion. They are two thorough gentlemen of this country who represented the true culture of this country, who are not prepared to appropriate all that themselves. In their words, they have said, who are the persons to whom this credit should go? And that should be an eye-opener to us. And that makes these people great all time. So therefore, after everybody congratulated them, both of them have delivered a speech in the Constituent Assembly accepting the affection shown by them. And it is also there in the book. I want to take out a few paragraphs. What Dr. Rajendra Prasad said on that day, on 26 November 1949, after this constitution was adopted, was he also gave an indication of how this constitution was framed. He says the methods with the Constituent Assembly adopted in connection with the constitution was first to lay down the terms of reference, as it were, in the form of an objective resolution, which was moved by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru in an inspiring speech, which constitutes now the preamble of the Constitution. The preamble of the Constitution which you have today is the work of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. The credit of that should go to him. It then proceeded to appoint a number of committees to deal with different aspects of the constitutional problem. I told you 19 committees. Dr. Ambedkar mentioned the names of these committees because he had given an earlier speech, mentioned them. Several of these had as a chairman either Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru or Sardar Patel, to whom thus goes the credit of the fundamentals of our constitution. This is what Dr. Rajendra Prasad is saying. The credit of the fundamentals of this constitution should go to these two great men, Jawaharlal Nehru and Vallabhbhai Patel, who headed majority of these committees. I have only to add that they all worked in a business-like manner and produced reports which were considered by the Assembly, and their recommendations were adopted as the basis on which the draft of the Constitution had to be prepared. This is what Prasad is saying. We took those reports of these 19 members. That is the basis for this Constitution. Who did it? This was done by Mr. B.N. Rao, who brought to bear on his task a detailed knowledge of the constitutions of other countries and an extensive knowledge of the conditions of this country, as well as his own administrative experience. Later he went on to become a judge of the International Court. So the expertise in making of this constitution is that of Dr. B.N. Rao, who toured the whole other countries and brought all that is good in them into this country. The Assembly then appointed the drafting committee, which worked on the original draft prepared by B.N. Rao, produced the draft constitution, which was considered by the Assembly at great length at the second reading stage. That is that 141 days discussion. As Dr. Ambedkar pointed out, there was not less than 7,635 amendments, of which 2,473 amendments were moved. I am mentioning this only to show that it was not only the members of the drafting committee who are giving their close attention to the Constitution, but other members were vigilant and scrutinizing the draft in all its details. Torchlight, they are watching what these people are going to do. No wonder that we have to consider not only each article in the draft, but practically every sentence and sometimes every word in every article. See the trouble they are taking. Unimaginable. It may interest honorable members to know that the public were taking great interest in its proceedings, and I have discovered that not less than 53,000 visitors were admitted to the visitors gallery during the period when the Constitution has been under consideration. In the result, the draft Constitution has increased in size, and by the time it has been passed, it has come to have 395 articles and 8 schedules, instead of 243 articles and 13 schedules of the original draft of Mr. B.N. Rao. I do not attach much importance to the complaint, which is sometimes made that it has become too bulky. If the provisions have been well thought out, the bulk need not disturb the equanimity of our mind. So that's how justification for this bulky constitution. Then they said, to whom this credit should go? I must convey, if you will permit me, my own thanks as well as the thanks of the House to our constitutional advisor, Sri B.N. Rao, who worked honorably all the time that he was here, assisting the Assembly not only with his knowledge and erudition, also enabled the other members to perform their duties with thoroughness and intelligence by supplying them with the material on which they could work. In this, he was assisted by his band of research workers, whose name we do not know, and other members of the staff who worked with zeal and devotion. Tribute has been paid justly to Sri S.N. Mukherjee, who has proved of such invaluable help to the drafting committee. This is what Dr. Rajendra Prasad, the chairman of the Constituent Assembly, says the credit should go to B.N. Rao, Mukherjee, and a band of workers will visit workers. So it was not depending on day. Having said all this, see the great man, he had his own reservations. He did. Sometimes probably there's some, we have premonition about what has to come to this, in future to this country. Because they are all men with great character. They were a part of the freedom struggle. Then he was the chairman of the Constituent Assembly. He has seen his colleagues, he has seen his persons, and see what he said in the end. Whatever the Constitution may or may not provide. Today, everybody is talking about Constitution. Everybody is talking about fundamental rights. Everybody is talking about right of privacy. How are you intent to all this? What is your sacrifice? What is your effort? See what he has said. Whatever the Constitution may or may not provide, the welfare of the country will depend upon the way in which the country is administered. You don't need a constitution for that. That will depend upon the men who administer it. Why do you need a constitution? It is a trite saying that a country can have only the government it deserves. That's what we are trying to do. After all, a constitution, like a machine, is a lifeless thing. If the people who are elected are capable and men of character integrity, they would be able to make the best even of a defective constitution. If they are lacking in these, the constitution cannot help this country. Just precisely where we are today. This is most astonishing what is said on the table. India needs today, that is in 1950, nothing more than a set of honest men who will work, who will have the interest of the country. This is something which is troubling me. In 1950, if our president is saying, I need few people, honest people, and they were not available. What about today? Of course, on this occasion, I don't want to say what was the state on that day. After all this, I started making inquiries. What are the type of people who are in the front of freedom struggle? Who are the people who enjoyed power? What is their record? I don't want to say it today, but this is sufficient. He said, we have given you the best of constitution. It is not going to help this country. It all depends on the persons who are going to run the country. And if that person is honest and a man with integrity, you don't need a constitution. Then what is the great about this constitution? But he says, I need nothing more than a set of honest men. He's saying, I don't have that. What have I to do with this constitution? One may say, probably he was emotional, this and that. Let us see what Ambedkar said. The chairman of the drafting committee who moved the before the constitution and got it moved. He has got something to say on that day when people said, you are the person who is responsible for that. He said, the credit that is given to me does not really belong to me. It is this sentence, according to me, made Dr. Ambedkar the greatest jurist of this country. He is the chairman. Constitution is drafted. He has moved it before the Constituent Assembly. There were serious objections. He encountered everything. He satisfied everybody. Then you are successful in moving it as it is. And when they gave him the credit, he says, it does not belong. That is the Indian culture. That's where the greatness of Ambedkar lies. That if it does not belong to him, whom does it belong? It belongs partly to Sri Sir B.N. Rao, the constitutional advisor. to the Constituent Assembly, who prepared a rough draft of the Constitution for the consideration of the draft. Partly to BNO. Who are the others? A part of the credit must go to the members of the drafting committee, who, as I have said, have sat for 141 days and without whose ingenuity to devise new formulae and capacity to tolerate and to accommodate different points of view, the task of framing the Constitution would not have become to so successful a conclusion. Then, much greater share of the credit must go to Mr. S.N. Mukherjee, the chief draftsman of the Constitution. B.N. Rao is a Constitution advisor. S.N. Mukherjee is the draftsman who actually drafted it. His ability to put the most intricate proposals in the simplest and clearest legal form can rarely be equal, nor his capacity for hard work. He has been an acquisition to the Assembly. Without his help, this Assembly would have taken many more years to finalize this Constitution. I must not omit to mention the members of the staff working under Mr. Mukherjee, for I know how hard they have worked and how long they have toiled, sometimes even beyond midnight. I want to thank them all for their effort and cooperation. This is what Dr. Ambedkar said. Having said all this, then he also said what he expects, what may happen tomorrow. This is what he said. However good a constitution may be, it is sure to turn out bad because those who are called to work it happen to be a bad one. That's precisely what's happening. If people are good, you don't need a constitution. If people are bad, however good a constitution may be, it is of no use. This is what the draftsman of the constitution is saying. However bad a constitution may be, it may turn out to be good if those who are called to work it happen to be a good law. The working of the constitution does not depend wholly upon the nature of the constitution. The constitution can provide only the organs of the state, such as the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. The factors on which the working of these organs of the state depend on the people and the political parties they will set up as the instruments to carry out their wishes and their politics. Who can say how the people of India and their parties will behave? My young friends, this is what the chairman of the Constituent Assembly, this is what the chairman of the drafting committee has said with all sincerity, honesty, and integrity. They did not find people of their caliber in 1950 itself. And where are they today? And today, everybody, a beggar in the street is talking about the Indian Constitution. Today, paper is full of constitutional experts. You have got constitutional experts interpreting the Constitution, the footpath. In TV shows, have they read the Constitution? Do they know Constitution? Look into it, everybody says the Constitution. As long as that particular constitutional provision is favorable to him, he shows respect to the Constitution. If something is against him, he says unconstitutional. This is our knowledge. Please see the newspaper. See the great men who are holding the highest post. And unfortunately, sometimes the persons who are in the higher echelons of judiciary are no exception. Of course, all of us are coming from the same stock. You may hold in different posts. The greatness of Dr. Ambedkar lies here, not in what they are seeing today. They are quoting Ambedkar and saying all nonsense. The poor man cannot come out of his grave and say, I did not say this. That's why future lies with you. You have the intelligence. You have not suffered any difficulties in your life. And the country looks at you. And therefore, if you have a constitutional form of government, constitution is a solution to all our problems. You have to look at the constitution in a proper perspective, not with colored glass, not to have a particular constitution is meant for everybody. It is not meant for any group of people. And the ultimate object of the constitution, as in the preamble, is every citizen of this country should get justice politically, socially, economically, and should live like friends. And we must maintain the integrity and sovereignty of this country. Today, all our actions is contrary to this. University campuses, the youth have become an instrument of destruction of the unity of this country. That's the worst that can happen. That's precisely what this gateway said. We do not know how the country, tomorrow's country will be, what type of people will be listening. The constitution gave you everything. This country has given you everything on a platter. What is the sacrifice we have made? Nothing. And today, everybody is talking about constitution. My criticism of this constitution of 1950 is it was not comprehensive. It is not complete. Why? This is what Harold Lasky has said, that rights are related to functions and are given only in return for some duties to be performed. This is universal truth. He is not a lawyer. He is not a constitutional expert. He is saying something with the world accepts it. Are you entitled to any right without performing your duty? Rights and duties are like two sides of a coin. See what Mahatma Gandhi said after looking at the constitution. The very right to live, Article 21, accrues to us only when we do the duty of citizenship for the world. Today, Article 21 is invoked by anti-social, anti-national elements, not by citizens of this country. From this one fundamental statement, perhaps it is easy enough to define the duties of man and woman and correlate every right to the corresponding duty to be first perform the duty, then as per the right. Every other right can be shown to be usurpation hardly worth fighting for. Where is your Indian constitution in this aspect? It only spoke about duty, rights, and that's how the entire country is, according to me, ruined today. Everybody is talking about the rights. Nobody is bothered about the duties. Of course, 25 years after independent constitution, during emergency, even then you were not bothered. There's a black spot on the Indian democracy. And hats off to Indira Gandhi. For the first time in the 46th Amendment, they brought in what is known as fundamental duties, Article 51A. So that means the Constitution of 1950, without a chapter on duties, was not complete. That may be one of the reasons why the country is like this. Though in 76, this Article 51A was introduced, nobody has bothered. In your colleges only are talking about fundamental rights. Nobody is bothering about fundamental duties. And that's where we stand today. A committee was constituted after 50 years of the Constitution to see the working of the Indian Constitution. What has the committee has said? This is what he has said. Fundamental duties of citizens serve a useful purpose. In particular, no democratic polity can ever succeed where the citizens are not willing to be active, participate in the process of governance by assuming responsibilities and discharging citizenship duties and coming forward to give their best to the country. So the Constitution of 1950, in my understanding, was defective because it did not specify what the fundamental duties of the citizen, and enforcing a fundamental right, sine qua non is performing the fundamental duties. Even after introduction, we do not see any change, and even now today, we are talking about only fundamental duties, absolute rights, irresponsible rights, and that's where the country is going. Therefore, my young friends, country viewers, you have to live tomorrow. We have lived in this atmosphere, plus or minus, doesn't matter. But if the youth of this country do not think about their duties in this country, citizenship duties, probably you will have a tough time in days to come. I'm sure with the introduction of 5 years law courses, with a brilliant battery of faculty members, if you keep your mind open, look at these things in a proper perspective, keep the interests of the country at heart, keep the interests of society at heart, and if you know the culture of this country, probably in days to come, the apprehensions expressed by Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Dr. Ambedkar is kept in mind. You could prove to be a better person than us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for emphasizing on our constitutional history and our duties as citizens, and encouraging us to believe in the dynamism of our constitution. As law students, we will make sure to understand how our constitution was made and honor the efforts of our founding fathers. Now, we have finally come to the moment we've all been waiting for. The distribution of the prizes to the winners. I invite Professor Kanchana Mann to take it forward.
Good morning, all. We from Legal Services Clinic congratulate all the participants of Samvidhan Mahotsav. Now I call upon Honorable Justice to hand over the trophies for the winners. Poster making, winner Mandara and Maheshwari. Runner-up Asha Aishwarya. Folk dance competition, winner Mansi. Runner-up Darshan. This competition, winner Digvijay Ganapati, Adarsh Kaushal. Runner-up Suprita Shetty, Vinod Gowda. Constituent Assembly debate. Best Speaker Yusuf Khalid Mehtar. High Commendation, Samridhi Sastri. Special mention, Srilata Patra.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Vijay Praneshwaran to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Dignitaries on the dais, dear students. It gives me immense pleasure to be proposing this vote of thanks on behalf of the University, CMR University School of Legal Studies, the Board of Management, Academic Council, on behalf of Dean and on behalf of all of us. Before thanking the chief guest, two things stood out. The narration of the framing of the Constitution. In fact, it was like we had gone back to 1946 and I would beautiful narration of how Constitution was drafted. It doesn't start from 1950, it starts much before, and the actual drafting. Wonderfully portrayed. It was like seeing a movie. Thank you, Your Lordship, for that wonderful narration. And the second thing that stood out was the duties. Unfortunately, like His Lordship said, we only think in terms of rights and we completely forget the duties. In fact, we should first, as His Lordship pointed out, we should first think of duty, what duty we have, and then ask for our rights. On that note, we are extremely thankful and honored to have had Honorable Mr. Justice N. Kumar, formerly Judge, High Court of Karnataka, to be part of this Samvidhan Divas at CMR University School of Legal Studies and has delivered a wonderful address telling us the importance of the Constitution, rights, and most importantly, duties. Thank you very much, Your Lordship. On behalf of everyone, I would like to kindly hand over a token of our appreciation to His Lordship. Thank you, Your Lordship. Thank you, sir. We are also extremely thankful to our beloved team, Dr. T.R. Subramania, for leading us and taking us forward in all our endeavors, and also bringing in such great men to address us so that we have a different perspective, we have the true perspective of the various aspects of law and life. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you to the coordinators of the Legal Services Clinic for having organized this week-long Samvidhan Mahotsav and culminating in today's Samvidhan Divas. Advocate Vidya Selvamani and Professor Kanchana, thank you very much. Thank you to all the faculties who are part of this week-long events, judging the events, organizing. Thank you, dear teachers. Also, a big thank to the technical team for giving the backbone and back support for maintaining the digital version of these events. Thank you very much. Coordinators, student coordinators who have been relentlessly working and make this week-long program a grand success. Thank you, student coordinators. And last but not the least, the students, my dear students, thank you for all the students who have made this even a grand success, and for all of you who have attended this function. Thank you very much.
I request everyone to rise for the national anthem.